When I first started, it was amazing. I would return my phone calls pretty much instantly, and people would just thank me for it, like they'd never had a lawyer do that before. So I saw an opening right there. I said, I hope all lawyers don't do it. Let me just do it.
Welcome to episode 5 of the Prachtical Law Podcast. In episode 5, we sit down with a legendary trial lawyer in South Carolina, Steve Schmutz. Steve has been practicing law for over 40 years and is based out of Charleston, South Carolina. Steve and I spoke about his involvement in some of the most significant legal cases in South Carolina history, including the Emanuel Nine shooting and the civil justice pursuit after that. And also we talked about the opioid settlements that Steve played an integral part in, as well as current events, who Steve's mentors were, and a general discussion of trial law and the practice of law in South Carolina. So I hope you enjoy our conversation with the legendary Steve Schmutz. Steve, thanks for being with us today.
Well, it's good to have you here, Chris.
Hey, man, we took the traveling road show to Charleston to come see you, man.
Well, everyone likes coming down here, and I'm glad you're here.
Absolutely. So before we get started and talk about those topics of what it takes to be a great trial lawyer, tell our audience about you and just about how you came to the law and your law practice.
Well, I mean, it's pretty much like everybody else. I went to law school, and I went into the solicitor's office, and I became the deputy solicitor here in Charleston and Berkeley County. Prosecuted a lot of cases, several death penalty cases, even though I'm not that wild about the death penalty.
Right.
And after that, 5 or 6 years later, I started my practice right here on Broad Street. I've been doing it since 36 years.
Yeah, so tell me about that. When did you start at the solicitor's office, Steve?
1978.
Okay.
Before you were born.
Right, I was going to say, so that's, by my count, that's 47 years you've been practicing law.
I don't keep up with it that closely, but I know it's a lot of time.
That's amazing, man. And so how long were you at the solicitor's office?
I guess I was there about 7 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We ran Charlie Condon's campaign. When I first started, Capers Barr was a prosecutor, and several of us ran Charlie when Capers decided he wasn't going to run again. He got elected, and of course he was a solicitor, and then he became the attorney general. That's how I got the tobacco case, as he was the attorney general and put me in that case.
Yeah, understood. So in 1978, when you first started, that was when you were at the solicitor's office, right?
Yes, that's it.
And what year was it? So it would have been about 85?
Yeah, about 85.
Tell me about that transition. Was it you just hung out a shingle, or what happened?
Yeah, that transition was scary as hell. That's what that transition was. You were getting a paycheck every other week, and you wasn't getting it anymore.
Right.
Every once in a while, I'll speak at the law school, and I'll tell these students, I said, there's no motivation like fear.
Right.
And so I hung out a shingle. I don't think you could do that today.
Yeah.
Without advertising, without getting your name out. But, as I said, that was 1985.
Right.
There wasn't a lot of advertising. And I did make a name for myself, as other people did in the solicitor's office. There was a lot of press then. Press covered virtually everything the solicitor did. And so it started that way. It worked out. And I knew all the lawyers in Charleston, Gedney Howe being one of them, sort of my mentor. And I'd had a lot of cases with him when I was in the solicitor's office. It worked out well. I mean, but it was scary at first. The practice of law really is, if someone were to ask me what the most important thing about practicing law is, I would say that it's connecting with people. Simple as that. And I had done that when I was in the solicitor's office. Law it's a people business. That's what it is.
Yes, sir.
You connect with people. You have somewhat of a profile. Again, this was before advertising. I guess I had $35,000, $40,000 in retirement. I put every bit of that into hiring a secretary, buying a desk. You had to start from scratch.
Just took that entrepreneurial step.
That's right.
To start a business.
But lawyers in Charleston helped. Right. They and I think they still do that. I know I do it, and I think other lawyers do it. I know you do it. Young lawyers starting out, you help them. They sure helped me.
Pay it forward, right?
That's right.
You mentioned Gedney Howe, and I know he passed away recently, unfortunately, and I know he was a mentor of yours. Tell me about that relationship of having a mentor. What did he teach you when you were first coming out in the private
Well, he
practice?
told me everything. Obviously, as I said, I tried a lot of cases, big cases. But that wasn't much when I started to practice. Gedney told me once, he said, the hardest thing you're going to have to learn is how to handle clients, how to deal with a client. He was quite a character, and of course he's arguably the most famous lawyer in this state. It's when I first left the solicitor's office, and I was with him 2 or 3 weeks, and I was nervous about never doing any kind of law other than criminal law.
Right.
And never practicing in the civil arena at all. Mm-hmm. And I said that to Gedney, I guess, too many times.
Right.
I'll never forget the day when he goes, Steve, he said, I don't want to hear that anymore. He said, let me tell you how to practice law. Here's what you do. You work hard, you return your phone calls, you use your personality. It doesn't have a damn thing to do with knowing anything about the law.
It's so true, right?
Yeah, it's sort of true.
I mean, obviously you got to have some competency in the law, but if you can master those 3 things,
yes.
The rest of it comes pretty
back
damn
when
easy.
I first started, it was amazing. I would return my phone calls pretty much instantly, and people would just thank me for it, like they'd never had a lawyer do that before. So I saw an opening right there. I said, I hope all lawyers don't do it. Let me just do it.
Well, you know what? I read an article recently that the number one bar complaint, of all the grievances that get filed against all the lawyers in this state, the number one complaint is they don't call me back. So, I mean, it's there.
And it's difficult to do sometimes because you've got that client that is going to keep you on the phone until you can somehow or another get them off the phone. That's right. But it's just it's a matter of discipline. If you've got clients talking well about you, you can't lose.
100%. I was talking about that earlier today. Tell me this. So, had criminal defense primarily been your main practice area?
Yeah, it's probably 75 or 80% of what I do is criminal practice, but I make most of my money in the other 15 to 20%.
Of course, right? One of the things that I've always been impressed in watching you practice law is you, I think, have a great appreciation that the practice of law is also a game of addition, not subtraction.
Exactly. It's exactly
building
what it is.
teams, working in coalitions with other lawyers, and I just always love
exactly
that.
Right.
I've always, the most significant cases I've ever handled, money wise and size wise, I've always teamed up with other lawyers, good trial lawyers. We've done cases together. Talk a little bit about what you get out of that. I mean, building that team and having a group of lawyers to work with, even though you're a solo practitioner.
Virtually all the cases that I've made a lot of money on, I've teamed up with other lawyers. For instance, the tobacco case from South Carolina, the opioid case. But, I represented 3 of the families in the AME massacre.
Right.
And obviously there were other lawyers, Gedney being one of them.
Right.
We formed a team. Yeah. And it worked well. And number one, you like it. It's fun and it's productive.
I would agree. The cool thing about the Emanuel litigation team, obviously it was a horrible tragedy, and you guys were, such noble work you were doing. But in watching you guys go through that litigation, I asked myself the question: if it had just been one person handling all those cases, how much harder it would have been for them to do it. You guys having that team effort really seemed to help move the ball down the field.
I don't know that one person could have handled it emotionally because you were dealing, I was dealing with my 3 families. I don't know if I could have dealt with all of them or not. Sure. And I think everyone else felt that some because it was an emotional case.
Man, it had to be. And ups and downs too. I mean, the case got dismissed.
That's right.
You guys had to appeal it all the way to Richmond.
That's right.
Well, and what a great outcome at the end. To get some justice for that family. Yeah. Or those families.
Looking at all those families was really gratifying. But also I want to go, it sounds like a coach saying this, but another thing about the practice of law is having fun. And if you like it, you will have fun in it. Yeah. And I've always thought too that if you don't like the practice of law, or you don't like particularly what you're doing, the area of law you're doing, I don't know how in the world you could be successful. And I doubt that you are. I know some lawyers that have, started off in one area, did not like it. I've chatted with them about it. I said, get out of it, go to another area. They did, and they liked what they went into, and they were successful at it.
That's great advice. The first 4 or 5 years I practiced, I did everything, right? Family law, probate, just anything that would come in the door. And I hated family law. I wasn't any good at it. I didn't, and that compounds, right? And so the best decision I made was kind of taking your advice and cutting everything else out and focusing on what you really enjoy.
Yeah, it's as you know, it's a lot of fun. People ask me, they think I'm a lot richer than I am. They don't know how I spend money.
Right,
but
right.
They ask me, well, why don't you retire? And really the reason is because I wouldn't be sitting here with you right now if I retired.
Sure.
I wouldn't be going out tonight and hanging around my people I've known forever if I retired. I don't want to get out of the game.
What the
and
hell
I
would you
think
do?
what'll happen is you'll get out of the game when you need to get out of the game, when you should get out of the game.
Well, you talked about having fun, and our very good mutual friend who introduced us, really, David Ayler. I always thought he did as good a job of that as anybody, meaning he'd have some case, and this, whether y'all be going out to Iowa or we'd be going to the Virgin Islands, and we'd pro hoc vice into some state for some case. And David had a way of always turning what otherwise would be some kind of a grind work trip into an event, in a sense.
Exactly. Before David and I we weren't partners, but I brought him into this building and when he left the solicitor's office. And I don't know that I ever did a case out of state before David came in. And of course, he didn't know anything when he first started. Me and other lawyers had to teach him, same with me. But we started doing cases out of state. And you got to hook up with another lawyer, which would always be great. You see how other states, how their court system is. Mm-hmm. You get to know that lawyer. I don't know if we made a lot of money at it because obviously you got to go there. It's pretty expensive. You can only charge your client so much. And the way we get them, it'd be a local person who would get in trouble or have a lawsuit somewhere else, and they would want a local lawyer with them. Mm-hmm. So that's how we did, and we did a lot of cases all over the Southeast.
I think we kind of touched on this, but one of the things, and this is something I don't know yet, because I've been practicing law now. God, it's more than I thought, but I looked at them 16 years. But I'm not, don't quite have the experience you do. How do you maintain that over such a long, successful career? Like, what do you do to keep the balance?
Well, it's as Bob Dylan said, it's a lot of talking to yourself. You got to give yourself a good talking to, and I do that occasionally. And you've just got to put it in perspective. But obviously, you're so afraid you're going to let your client down. Sometimes you put more pressure on yourself than your client's putting on you. Mm-hmm. So it can be stressful. I don't know that you can cure it, but you've got to get through it. It generally always works out. It doesn't seem like it will maybe at the time when you're in the foxhole, but it does. It generally works out.
It seems like today when I see the court system and our judiciary, it seems like there's less trial. Now, I don't know about on the criminal side, but on the civil side, there certainly seems to be less trial work going on. Tell me about your trial experience. I mean, how did you really develop your skills? I guess it was at the solicitor's office, right?
Yeah, obviously developed it there. Started off trying some kind of case nobody else would even try when you were brand new, a DUI or something of that nature, and you worked your way up. I was the trial lawyer of that office for 4 or 5 years. Right. And you just learned that way. Now, in criminal defense, I didn't lose any cases as a solicitor. And that is not bragging, because I think you would have been an idiot to have lost any cases when you were a solicitor. You chose the case.
Right.
Would you choose a case that you were going to lose? No. But when you get out on this side, obviously, it's a whole lot different. And I've had some success and I've had some failures.
Well, and not that there's not pressure on a solicitor, because there can be tremendous pressure if you've got a murder case with victims and, you're trying to get justice for them. But gosh, it's got to be a little different experience if you're, defending a guy who's looking at 25 years or life or something on the other end.
Yeah, that's right. It is. And obviously, you're trying your best to work the case out, just like you do in a civil case. Right. You're trying to negotiate it out to something that your client can live with, and you just weigh the risk of a trial versus taking the best deal you can get.
So one of the things that I want you to talk about is you've been practicing law for all these years, and lawyer advertising has become a big thing now, right?
Yes.
On our way into Charleston, we probably passed 40 billboards, right? But your phone still rings, and you don't do a lot of advertising. I mean, I think you're your brand, if we want to call it that, has been built on your connections and your experience and word of mouth referrals. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. And I don't know that it could be done like that again in private practice. Like, for instance, my son's in law school. He'll be out in 3 years, I guess. And I don't know that he could do it that way. The reason I still have the practice, the reason it's still going well is because I've been doing it for so long and have touched so many people.
Right.
You represented so many people.
The network is there.
That's right. It's already there. I guess a funny story. When I first started out, I wasn't there a week. I was across the street then with Arthur Howe. He had rented me a space. And we had a post office box down the street at the federal courthouse where the post office is. So I said my secretary would go down and get the mail and bring it back, walk down the block. Arthur Howe saw that. He comes into my office, he goes, "What the hell are you doing?" I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Your secretary going down there and getting that mail. You go down there and get that mail. Let people see you on Broad Street. You're a lawyer. Let them see you out there."
Don't hole up in your office, for God's sake. Yeah.
So you know, I try to keep visible. As I started off, this is a people business.
Sure.
Chris, I tell you what, you've been talking about me a lot, and I really appreciate it. But in a moment, I want to ask you a question or two.
Go ahead, fire away.
Well, let me ask you this. How in the world does any lawyer win a case when somebody goes out in the ocean and drowns? Number one, how did you even take the case? And number two, how in the world did you win the case? And when I'm saying this, I'm saying it a little bit whimsically. I know how you won the case because you're a great lawyer. That's how you won the case. But tell me a little bit about it.
Well, it's this. Thank you for bringing up one of our better victories. But that was a crazy situation. And one, I got to give credit to my co-counsel Mullins McLeod and Cooper Wilson, who were awesome. I mean, absolutely awesome.
There we go again, working with other lawyers.
Working with other lawyers, right? I mean, it would have been near impossible for me to have gotten that result without them and without each other. We really were a great team. But you asked a good question about how the case come in, and that is an interesting story because I was sitting in my office and we talk about advertising and all that stuff. So let me tell you how the case came to me. A young lady that I grew up with in Anderson, South Carolina, had gone to work for State Farm corporate in D.C. for some reason. Don't ask me what her specific job was. But another lawyer up there that she knew represented the family that I represented in that case in like a car wreck case, simple car wreck case. And he was at dinner with her and said, this family called me. They got a weird case. It's a drowning case. I don't think it's a case, but I got to give them some name in South Carolina just because that's where it happened. And they got my name. And so I got this call from this lady, wonderful lady named Meswat Abel. And she, was distraught. I mean, this was like a week after her husband drowned. And so.
And her entire family was here.
And two of her children, her two oldest children, were in the water with their father when he drowned. And so it was just horrific. And literally, his daughter, Woobit, was found, holding on to him. And so she was distraught. But I was able to get the guts of what happened, and I really didn't think there was much to it. I said, who are we going to sue? The shark? I mean, there's nobody there. But dug into it and we found out, well, okay, wait a second. This was a lifeguarded beach. So there was somebody that should have been looking out. And then we found that weird thing that was going on up in Myrtle Beach where they were requiring the lifeguards to watch the water and rent beach chairs and equipment at the exact same time. The same person, and obviously you can't watch the water if you're filling out a receipt or setting up a beach chair or renting an umbrella. And that's exactly what we alleged happened and why they didn't spot our family that had gotten in trouble, gotten caught in a rip current. And so I think that was a big driving force about it. But at its essence, Steve, that case was about the things you talked about. It was about building a team. It was about being proactive and listening to your client and really putting in the hard work.
Yeah, and also it just occurs to me, sort of patting the lawyers on the back because we take a lot of criticism and some of it is certainly justified. But I assume what y'all did was change the procedure on that beach. I assume it's saved a lot of other lives.
I'd hope so.
Did.
So what happened about it, and this is the best part about it, I agree. We got a big verdict. That was wonderful. That verdict's on appeal. There's a million legal issues. I think we're going to win on that. But The best thing that happened to it, win, lose, or draw with the case, is about a month after the verdict, the city of Myrtle Beach changed their rules and said you can't do that anymore. So, again, win, lose, or draw with the case, we affected public.
Well,
change.
that's those pain in the ass lawyers. They'll change things, and so often it's for the good.
Yeah.
I'll tell you another story about getting help. You want to hear?
Yeah,
this?
please.
And I knew his father. And when I first came to the solicitor's office, his father, who also at that time was probably the most famous lawyer in South Carolina, and young Gedney was just, he'd been practicing 3 or 4 years. That's when I met the Howes when I was in the solicitor's office. Young Gedney told me one time that before he went to law school, he told his father he wanted to go to Georgia Tech. He said, "Why do you want to go to Georgia Tech?" He said, "Because I want to be an engineer." And he said, "Engineer? Why do you want to be an engineer?" He said, "Because I want to build bridges, like the Cooper River Bridge. I want to build it." He goes, "Son, engineers didn't build that bridge. Lawyers built that bridge. You see those handrails on that bridge where people can't fall off? Lawyers put those on there." And went through a lot of other things.
All the safety features on the bridge.
Exactly.
That leads into maybe it's a loaded question, but I think a good question, and that is, what does the practice of law or the profession of being a lawyer mean to you? What is it? It's obviously been your career, but what does it mean to you?
Well, it means, camaraderie, friendship. If you do it correctly, you'll make a lot of money. And I would like to think we do. I would like to think lawyers change the world in a positive way. Now, I don't know that anything I've ever done has done that. But Ralph Nader, for instance. When I first started driving cars, again, I hate to talk about stuff before you were born, Chris, but in the 50s, automobiles, they had spears inside of them on the hood.
Incredibly dangerous, right?
Exactly, everything.
Yeah.
And one lawyer, Ralph Nader, sort of changed all that. So that's, patting the lawyers on the back. And there's a lot. I think lawyers sometimes are their own worst enemies.
Sure.
Obviously. But it's a large profession. There are a lot of lawyers.
Right. So what's in store for the next 15 years of Steve Schmutz, attorney at law?
Well, if you want to hear something really funny, I'll tell you this. Usually I wait till I have a drink or something to tell these kind of stories. But, I was saying one time, I said, I'm going to quit when people start laughing at me when I'm walking down Broad Street. And then I go, I'm glad Kate's not right here, because she'd say, "Well, Steve, they already are." So, but I'll practice as long as I can practice. I think you'll know when you just can't do it or shouldn't be doing it.
Let me tell you this: you are nowhere near out of gas. Well,
you young guys keep me going. I have to keep that step, in a rapid pace, because of all you lawyers.
Well, one of the things we always kind of do to wrap these things up, Steve, is we talk about current events and trials that are going on. So let me ask you this: did you watch any of the P. Diddy trial, or did you follow that at all?
Yes, I followed some of it. I did.
What'd you think?
But I didn't watch enough of it to make too many comments on it. I just watched the victims, the alleged victims, their lawyers would say. I watched some of their testimony. I think the case turned out about the way I thought it might turn out. Yeah. I thought, I was watching that thing, I thought there was a chance of a not guilty verdict in it. But that could be because I didn't watch the entire case.
Sure, I understand.
But I think it's a mistake for the government to bring these charges that do not sound correct to the jury. RICO. And I've got some cases now that the charges, 2 or 3 charges, and then kidnapping. And the kidnapping will be the husband and the wife getting in a fight, and the husband slams the door and the wife can't get out of the room. And that's a charge of kidnapping.
Yeah.
And if I were a prosecutor, I would never bring that to a jury. Sure. It's not what a jury thinks of as kidnapping. Right. And I thought that the government paid a price on that in this case. It seems to me they could have prosecuted him for a serious assault and battery of a high aggravated nature, or even assault and battery with intent to kill. Right. And it would have made more sense. Right. It was showing that video of him. Yeah. I think they would have got a guilty verdict on that. Sure. for a serious assault, and maybe assault and battery with the intent to kill. And assault and battery of high aggravated nature is a lot of jail time.
Well, I tell you, man, I didn't know, I wasn't really shocked by it kind of for that same reason. I just didn't think that the RICO thing, it just didn't sound like what happened, if that makes sense.
Yeah, what was the other charge that...
I think it was racketeering.
Yeah,
right?
that's right, racketeering. So you got a RICO and a racketeering. Is the jury going to believe that he was running a racket? That it was some kind of mob? The facts they had were sufficient. I don't know why they had to try to stretch them into something else.
I agree. Well, Steve, I appreciate it. Is there any other advice you'd give to a young lawyer who's hanging out his shingle here as we sit here and wrap up today? And if you could give them a one-liner, what would you say?
Well, I think the one-liner would be to go out and practice law. They will love it. They will make a lot of money at it, and they will do well. And I also tell them this. This was said to me when I went out on the street in 1985. This was said to me, "Oh, Steve, there are too many lawyers out there now. There's so many lawyers." These lawyers coming out of law school hear that all the time. And when I speak at the law school, I tell them, do not pay any attention to that. There'll be 40 of them in front of me. I said 35 or 40. 35 of y'all will make a bunch of money practicing law. 4 or 5 of y'all will be judges. Some of you will be prosecutors. If you like what you're doing. So that's my advice to them, is to not listen to noise about how difficult it is and how there's just too many lawyers.
I love it. I agree. I've always felt like, I don't think it's necessarily intentional, but I almost feel like that's a scare tactic, and it's just like, just shut out the noise and go to work.
Particularly with some lawyer that's already in business and doing well. I mean, he doesn't want any other lawyers coming around.
Exactly.
So he tells them they're not going to be able to make it.
Oh, yeah, you might want to go be a doctor.
I don't want another competitor.
Right. Go be an accountant. I want to thank Steve Schmutz for joining us here today on episode 5 of Practical Law. We talked about the character and traits it takes to be a trial lawyer and to sustain success over decades of practice. Steve was nice enough to share some amazing stories. He's a legend. He told us some stories from some legends here in the Charleston legal community and the South Carolina legal community. So, Steve, thanks for being with us. And please, folks, reach out to us at 864-LAW if we can ever be of help to you, and check back in with us for future episodes of Practical Law.